Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along. Well, we flew through...
Come on along and welcome aboard. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Friday. It's August 21st. Todd Leary's in the house as always. I'm Jim Coyle. Hope you're having a great end of the week and ready for the weekend. The weather's going to be freaking spectacular. It has been for the last couple of days. It's Indy 500 weekend. We got Jake Query on today. We're going to be talking about some Indy. Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com is going to join us. Indiana basketball has been very busy. 2 offers overnight. Going to hear from Coach Tom Allen, who we met with yesterday. The NCAA Board of Governors is voting today. There's Purdue is suspending students. IU students are probably next. We got all kinds of stuff to get to, Todd Leary. NBA, forgot about the NBA last night. Golly, this is glorious. I got stuff to talk about, not even having to work as hard. There's stuff and I was going through TV. I'm like going, look at this. There was NBA on, there was baseball on, there was hockey on. I'm like going, this is glorious. It's
PGA Tour playoffs are on.
I was all giddy. I was like, oh my God, there's sports and stuff to talk about. It's lovely.
Friday morning, the sun is shining. I got PGA Tour live on in the background. It doesn't get a lot better.
It's Indy weekend.
Indy 500 weekend. I mean, what a crazy to think about fun. That in August is weird.
Purdue suspended 36 students for COVID violations. And I'll mention that only because Indiana, there was a party. We talked about this yesterday in Bloomington, off campus, it looked like, but IU Bloomington is investigating, and if they find who they name them, I promise you there will be suspensions. And unfortunately, it's almost like these kids are going to be used as a wake-up call for the rest of the kids, which that's sadly, but it seems sadly is what it's going to take. But also, I think because they're like we're probably going to send them all home anyway, so it's not a big deal. Let's suspend them and act like we're doing something.
You know what? Like the first thing that came to mind when you said that was, okay, I can firsthand tell you what a suspension is like in high school. I had one of those. But what's a suspension like in college? Like what are you talking about? I mean, half the kids don't go to class most of the time anyway. But you got to suspend a biology student, a pre-med student? Like, come on.
You get suspended in high school. It's like, oh, crap, I can't play sports. You get suspended in college. You're like, whoo, I'm off for a week, man. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm not going to go to class, because I'm not allowed to, not just because I choose not to. It's just weird how they talk about suspending them like that. But you are exactly right. I mean, they're using this as a scare tactic, which I don't blame any of them involved. I don't know how in the world you can police this situation. That's why they should, if it's not safe, they shouldn't be on campus. It's that simple.
Yeah. And so that gets back to
I want them on campus, but they shouldn't be.
I agree. I mean, who was it that I think there was another school that just did that. High school. It was a high school. Some high schools. It was an Indiana high school that said, yeah, that's it, sending them home. But yeah, that's just going to happen. But the NCAA Board of Governors voting today on what would essentially give student athletes a 5th year of active eligibility to be able to play 5 years. There's now something I didn't think about yesterday. Records. Are you going to give a kid a record who plays 5 years in, say, basketball? Whatever, it doesn't matter what sport it is. You can't give somebody a record that has.
You don't think it would happen, but let's just say, for example, Luka Garza. They end up playing. They end up playing half a season, regular season, or whatever it is, and then he's able to come back for yet another season.
He could. I mean, he won't because he's going to go to the draft, but he could, and that is just crazy. But that's the situation. We had to talk to Coach Tom Allen yesterday, and actually the very thing that I asked him was, let me see if I can pull that video up. There we go. Was about that because Indiana's a team that's probably going to help, obviously. If you get to keep a WAP affiliate or something like that for a fifth year, that'd be crazy. But there are other teams get to do that too. Ohio State, can you imagine them getting to pile on? And now, is this going to screw up recruiting? You got roster management. Now you got 5 classes of kids. There's so much. But talk to Tom Allen about that, and I got the opportunity to ask him that question. And once he'll eventually answer, hopefully.
It's an interesting development that we were all made aware of, just like you all read and saw it. It'll be, you said, voted on tomorrow. I think it has a significant impact moving forward. I think as you look at the component of roster management, what that looks like, you basically have a whole class or a whole group of players, especially that senior class, that would be granted an additional year, and all the players would as well. And they're fleshing through what that really means and how. And so we'll kind of wait and see until we get the final verdict when it comes out. But yeah, I just think that what happens is as you move forward, it's going to affect, recruiting classes, and just how you say, okay, because it's all based off of the 85. And so you have so many spots at each position that you set aside, so many linebackers, so many safeties, so many O-linemen, so many receivers, so forth, so on. And so, if you don't have the departures out of that group, then you can't replace those numbers. So there's no question. I can't really tell you clearly how it's going to impact everything. I'll have to see how the rules are totally finalized once they come out, but there's no question it will have an impact. And then, how schools decide to manage that situation will be probably specific to each school. And so you're going to see varying degrees of impact, but without question, it will make a big difference. Yes.
There's Coach Tom Allen talking about the vote coming today in which NCAA, and it's going to pass. So we are going to have that situation. It's going to be weird. Now, obviously, if a player's really good, they're going to I lost my train of thought. Somebody sent a text in, but they're going to get drafted. They're going to be gone, so they're not going to come back. But there's those tweeners that are not quite there that, man, oh, man, it could be a difference maker.
Here's where this is a real issue, Jim. What if the high schools do that? What if the high schools allow kids an extra year of eligibility? That would be a major, major development. In college, the best players, there's going to be a lot of players that it affects. It's not going to be people who we know. It's not going to be the Luka Garzas of the world, I don't think. But there's a lot of, like mid to great athletes in different sports that could probably really benefit from that. Now, yeah, I think it is what we said. I think it might improve the actual play in particular sports, because you might have older players. Teams might be getting older, like we always hear coaches talk about they want to do. They won't be having to play as many freshmen and sophomores, but I don't know. I don't like messing with the whole system like that. And I don't even have a good reason why. it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird thing and see how it shakes out, but it is what it is. So it's got to accept it and move on, but it's definitely going to be another change that is coming out of this COVID situation. But
I think Tom Allen kind of said one part of it the best is I think the schools will deal with it individually, and it'll be kind of a school by school basis for how much they utilize that extra year.
Yeah, because we saw when this came up in the last spring, when that offer came up, a lot of schools said, yeah, we can't do that. And that comes down to money. They got to pay for those scholarships. And so that's a lot of extra scholarships that have to be paid for. We saw last spring them deciding not to do that. But so it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But Indy 500 weekend, man. Jake Query's going to join us next. I'm looking forward to watching this race. I'll be honest with you. Kind of got away from watching Indy after a few years. and right now, I'm like, they could race tricycles, and I would be on watching that thing. But looking forward to seeing that this weekend. Then you got the Kentucky Derby coming up, Labor Day weekend, a few weeks away. It's going to be – wait a minute, isn't the Masters coming up?
Yeah, November. Not till November.
That's crazy.
We've still got the U.S. Open and the Masters in golf that'll be played. So they've got 3 consecutive playoff events this week and then the next 2 weeks, and that'll determine the FedEx Cup champion. And then they'll have the U.S. Open right after that. And then a couple of weeks later, they'll have, or actually 2 months later, they'll have the Masters. So yeah, it'll be an interesting end of the year. It'll be so much different, but it'll be interesting.
Alec Lasley is going to join us from the Hoosier.com today. Indiana basketball has been very busy. 2 offers went out last night one that was an in-state kid and one's not. But both of those are in the 2022 class. But we'll talk to Alec about that. Looking forward to that. And then basketball-wise, there's just not a lot going on right now, other than the NBA, of course. The NBA playoffs are happening, which is always fun, especially when I didn't get to watch. I wanted to watch the Lakers Portland game last night. I ended up falling asleep, I think, but the Lakers were just killing them before I even fell asleep. Where the other game, first game, was just an awesome game.
Yeah, I didn't get to see a whole lot of the NBA last night. I fell asleep pretty early, but I mean, the NBA playoff, the both of the 1 seeds got beat in the first round, Milwaukee and the Lakers, and you just kind of knew based on the way the NBA works out, they were going to come back and have big wins. Milwaukee won by 15. The Lakers won by almost 30, I think. So
Houston did not have Westbrook. He's still out.
Again,
And Harden struggled early. He was like 1 of 7, but he lit it up late. And they won pretty easily. 111-98.
Eric Gordon had 15 points. Doesn't sound bad. He shot 20 times and was 0 for 10 from the three-point line.
They did not show a single highlight of his. I was
0 for 10. There weren't any. He was 0 for 10.
I know. The Pacers lose yesterday. They go down 0-2 to the Heat, man. That's not looking good for Indianapolis.
Yeah, they got off to a good hot start in the bubble, and you kind of thought they were gaining a bunch of momentum. But, boy, once the actual playoffs have started, the games haven't been huge blowouts. They've kind of been in both games, but they've just not had a good feeling. I felt like they've not been in control of any of those games. Miami just seems to have their number right now.
Yep. Victor Oladipo had 22 points. Turner has 17. Brogdon had 17. It's just been a rough.
Very inefficient 22 points. Inefficient 17 points. TJ Warren had he didn't play well. He couldn't make any threes. His shot, he just didn't look comfortable. And, they didn't look good yesterday. They've not looked good in either of the first 2 games, I didn't think. And they looked great during the actual bubble time.
Yeah, I was going to say that Indianapolis had such a great run leading up, playing down there, and then it seems to have gone away. But maybe part of that's the other teams turning it up for the playoffs.
But you would think everybody would turn it up for the playoffs. I'm with you. I totally agree. It just is, they look like – and they were going to have to pull off – I don't want to say a miracle, but a semi-miracle. They were going to have to accomplish some, got some big hurdles out there. Not having Sabonis and, still dealing with the whole Victor Oladipo. And is he going to play? Is he not going to play? When he played, he didn't play that well. I don't know. They're not trending very good right now.
Nope. Hey, we've got Jake Query coming up next here on Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios. We're going to talk some Indy 500 when he gets on, so stay tuned. Alec Lasley joins us later to talk IU basketball. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, and we're back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Ryan Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Friday, August 21st. And I cannot believe we're talking about the Indianapolis 500, but we are. It's Indy 5 weekend. Jay Query is going to be out there, of course, coming to you from Turn 3 on the radio, and he's joining us today. Cannot be any happier, Jake. How you doing out there, man?
I hear you now. I am doing well. I'm on my way to the track. Actually, it's always fun whenever I drive to the Speedway. I stop and pour out like half my Diet Mountain Dew, kind of in recognition of the spot where Todd Leary died in 1995 trying to do the mini marathon in his Adidas high tops, which I know was a scintillating moment in the life of young Todd Leary. But it is weird on his birthday, but yet, you know, nobody there. Typically, this is where, you know, there's 100,000 fans and a concert and the Freedom 100, and you know, it's different. There's no doubt about the fact it's different, but it's still a race weekend and on our way now for the final practice.
Jake, you know, there's all kinds of things, too, that go on with the Indianapolis 500. Usually, you know, Indy Week and all the things that lead up to it. There's so many different things that have been incorporated into the Indianapolis 500 that makes it such a spectacle and a festival for everybody. Even our man Todd Leary ran in the mini marathon, I think, in some high tops back some years ago. But we'll let him laugh and talk about that later on. But there's a lot of things that go on with it that are not going to happen this year that people are not going to experience, but that's just part of what we're dealing with.
Well, you know what's funny is two things. Number one, the mini marathon, it is great. I mean, in miles 6.5 to 9 are around the oval, and you can always tell people that have never been there because you get onto the track and they're like, "Oh, sweet, we just do like a quick lap here," and I'm like, "Yeah, man, it's 2.5 miles and it's 9-degree banking and it's hot." And last year, I'm running down the straightaway. I mean, I'm dying, right? I'm running down the straightaway. And this guy comes flying up next to me. I mean, Usain Bolt's up next to me. And he's like, "Hey, man, there'd be nothing cooler than hearing you call my run while I cross the yard of bricks." And I'm like, "Brother, I'm 6 miles into it here, man. I'm like Leary in high tops. I mean, there's no way in hell I'm going to sit here and broadcast while I'm trying to run it." But, look, the place is special. The place is unique. And it is, you know, like I said, this year's unique. I know I keep saying that, but it's still the Indy 500. It's, you know, you kind of, part of me feels like, you know, it's like, well, we're going through the motions. And then the other part is, yeah, but it's still the same. Like yesterday with Media Day and talking to drivers, and you start to kind of get the feel that seeing those 33 cars coming at me in turn 3 is still going to be pretty awesome. And going through practice today and going up there to kind of get the rotations of watching all the cars and familiarizing. I mean, everything's still there except for the 300,000 people, but they're a big, big part of it.
And, Jake, we talk about no fans and just not having them there. When you're watching on TV, that has an effect. But there's also the other effects that we've talked about and just your vantage point. How does it affect you? How does it affect how you handle the broadcast, how you do the broadcast? Does it actually work as a distraction or anything like that? It's just weird to have such a high-profile event without people around.
It is. It's weird because a lot of people have asked me about that, and my location is on top of the Northeast Vista, so I can see all the fans below me. And I might have mentioned this to you guys last time, but, when the race starts and you're calling the race from a radio standpoint, so for those that are unfamiliar, we have one guy in each turn on the radio network, and I'm in turn 3. So from the race standpoint, once the race begins, you're just paying attention to what's on the track because that's your responsibility. And, yeah, you've got to look down, you see all the fans below you, so you're aware of them, but you kind of lock in and you don't really pay attention to it. But it is interesting because having no clue, obviously, like anybody else, that this year was going to be as it was, I do recall last year seeing the reaction of people during the course of the race and watching them, raise their fists and things like that when Pagano made the pass for the win down below us. And every once in a while I would reference the crowd, and people that had their headsets on would turn around and wave. Most people know why I am, so they wave or whatever. So last year at the end of the race, I made it a point to kind of thank everybody down below and to say that that there's kind of that bond. Like, I appreciated people coming out and enjoying the race, and you feel that same, collection with everybody. And it is kind of weird to me now in hindsight that I said that, having no idea that this year was going to present itself as it is. But, you still have a responsibility. You still have a professional obligation to try to call the race. And maybe that means that more people are listening at home because they're grilling out or they're out on their boat or enjoying it. Maybe they're running to the grocery store and completely forgot the race was on and they turned the radio on. I don't know, but the job is still there. It's still a huge honor for me to be able to do it, and it's humbling to be able to be asked each year to do it, so I look forward to it.
I think you had said something before about how much louder it seemed during the Brickyard because of no fans in the stands to kind of mute the reverberation off the metal bleachers. Will it be the same for the 500?
It's a great point, Todd, and I think it will. Without getting too auto geek here, the aspiration of a stock car in terms of the muffle of the sound is none. And in the Indy car, because of the turbo engines, you get a little bit, it's not near as loud. One car is not near as loud. So you don't have as much noise, but it's absolutely amplified. We were stunned. Partially, I guess it's not stunning that none of us on the broadcast would have thought of that because all of us collectively failed every science class we ever took. But it was really loud, and it was hard to hear each other to know, so we just had to kind of generically pick up where we assumed the other guy was done talking. But that comes with having done it together for so long. But that's one of the things, to be honest with you, Card Day is not only the final practice for the cars, it's really the first practice for us because other than qualifying with all the cars out on the track, this is the first time since last year's race that Michael Young, Nick Yeoman, myself, Chris Denari are each in our respective turns with all 33 cars. So we'll find that out today and get used to it today. You kind of get used to it, and that's kind of what today is for. But yeah, I think it'll be loud and it'll be unusual. There's no doubt about it. It is weird to be up a top turn 3, and I'm the only person in that quarter of the track, literally. I look around and I'm like, well, if something happens to me, I guess they'll find me next May when somebody else comes out here to call the race. That's really kind of what it feels like out there. But it's, it'll be loud, no doubt about it.
And, this year, it's a shame there aren't going to be fans there, but at least something that's going to be a really cool deal is on the pole is Marco Andretti, grandson of great Mario Andretti, who is synonymous with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, synonymous with racing in and of itself. But it is such just a cool deal to see him on the pole.
Yeah, that's obviously a big storyline, and you can only imagine how big a storyline it would have been in a non-COVID year, right, with everybody out there and with it running in May. It still is a big deal, no doubt about it. Marco Andretti's a guy that, everybody knows as a rookie, darn near won the race, was 200 yards from winning it when Sam Hornish Jr. passed him. And because of the name itself, I mean, the reality is that when you talk about the Indianapolis 500, still to this day, even though they're all a quarter of a century from when they were active, the Unsers, the Andretti's, the Mears names, that those stick out. And so people relate to that. Marco has had struggles as a driver the last few years, but at this place he's always been pretty good. So he's absolutely got a rocket ship, no doubt about it. His teammates do as well. I mean, there are any of probably 10 drivers that realistically have an equal chance to win it. So from a racing sports standpoint, that resonates. Graham Rahal as well, whose dad, Bobby Rahal, won this race back in '86. He's also right in the thick, starting in the front three rows. So there are some good storylines and some compelling storylines. You just hope that the big storyline of the change of this year doesn't detract from that.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about not having fans there, but and how it affects you or the broadcast and us, the viewers. But the thing we've kind of forgotten about is what was talked about early on is how it actually affects the events, the participants and things like that, and how it may change how those things interact amongst them.
I think actually the one thing that it doesn't necessarily affect me, but I mean from the driver's standpoint that I think a lot of them are curious about, the narrative has always been for the drivers that they practice and they qualify with basically, relatively speaking, no one in the stands. Then on race day, when all of a sudden the stands are full, every driver talks about how it narrows down the track. Like the track looks as you're going into turn one so much more narrow because all of a sudden now you have all the people and it just makes it feel tighter. So going into turn one on the first lap, it kind of forces you to mind your P's and Q's because it reminds you just how narrow it is and that you can't go three wide. That's not going to be present this year. So when you have a guy like Rinus VeeKay, who's a rookie, 19 years old, starting on the inside of row number two, he's not going to have that reminder of, hey, man, be careful as you're going into the turn here because this is really narrow. So still being mindful of that and knowing that the same lanes don't exist that didn't exist when he was out there for practice and for qualifying is going to be important for him and for other guys to think of. But, part of – I've said it before, I'll say it again a million times, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500, part of what makes it unique more so than perhaps any facility in the world or any event is virtually everyone that comes feels like they have a personal connection, a personal history with the track. And that's 50% of what makes the event itself. Sure, the race is great and the cars are cool and all that, but all of the people that you see and all the different stories and all the traditions, that's kind of what makes it what it is. So, look, we got to get through it this year without that and make the best of it and then be optimistic and hopeful that and that's the cool part, I guess, is in 9 months we'll be right back.
And, the drivers, we talked about not having fans again and how it affects the participants, the event. But they have had the opportunity to at least race without fans, to have that experience. But, of course, it's at a different track, and each track is different. Indianapolis Motor Speedway is completely different up on itself, and it's a unique setup. So we don't know how that's going to impact the drivers in this particular race, but we're going to find out coming up on Sunday.
Damn. By the way, you guys will like this. I'm going through the health screening right now. Do you want to guess what my temperature is? Todd, you got to guess?
98.6.
98.6.
Listen, I love the confidence in both you guys thinking that I'm that hot. I'm going to go with it being cool. I'm going to go 97.1.
He thinks he's a cool guy.
Hang on just a second. I'm sorry. My credentials inside my shirt, guys, so I get to undress down. Just a second. Okay, thank you.
This is like, this is awesome. This is like some Bobby.
Hey, listen, I apologize. This was all kind of the matter of the timing here. Now I'm coming up to the IU Health Screening Temperature Scan, so I apologize for the incredible unprofessional nature in which I did this, but hang on. It's 97.0. I'm glad it wasn't 97.5. They fired me. I'll trade it for you. There you go. All right. Okay, guys, I'm officially healthy and in. So to answer your question, Todd, they did run in Texas on an oval with no fans. And, look, in a normal circumstance, these guys are out here all month. And obviously that's not the case. It was only last week, 3 days of practice. So they're kind of used to the setting. I think they feed up the fans a little bit. But for this event, the thing that's really pretty interesting about the 500 that I've talked to a lot of guys about yesterday is there are so many obligations in a typical year that come into the race itself. You're doing sponsorship dinners, you're doing the snake pit ball, you're doing the parade. I mean, they literally have something every single day, none of which are applicable this year. So I think it actually kind of relaxes them, because even though there's a disappointment of not having that energy, it means there's also not that obligation. And so they've had a chance to, to kind of just really focus on what it is they need to do, which is go out there, stay clean, and run a race. And in the end, when you're a race car driver, that's your job. And doing the other stuff and the kissing babies and all that, it's important. It's important for sponsorship, but it doesn't help you win races. And focusing does. It's really funny. I remember the only other year the blackout was lifted was in 2016 for the 100th running, because they basically said, Department of Homeland Security said, you've reached the maximum number of human beings you can have in one place at one time. So they lifted the blackout in 2016. And I remember from a radio standpoint doing the radio network and, admittedly speaking here, being a narcissist, I was disappointed that people, oh man, I hope people still listen to the race. And yet it didn't really affect our numbers, because I think a lot of people had it on along with the television experience. But,
sure.
There's no doubt about the fact from an exposure standpoint, having the TV coverage live is huge, especially in Indianapolis. I mean, when you're trying to get a good television number, you need a top 25 market to pull in a big number, and Indianapolis will do that. I think a lot of people will tune it in. And maybe some people will tune it in that wouldn't normally do so. And therefore kind of get exposed to it, because it does look, there's nothing cooler to me than the low camera angles in the turns when the cars all go flying past and the little flowers start like weaving back and forth from the power of it. It's cool. I mean, there's no doubt about the fact it's cool. And I certainly hope that people that don't normally know about the race or haven't experienced it tune it in, get a taste for it, and then understand what it's all about. But naturally speaking, of course, guys, I have to say, while I love the guys on television, it helps accentuate it when you listen to the race while watching it. There's my shameless PSA.
There's a lot of truth to what you're talking about, though, Jake. If you think back, at least back my fun times back in the day, you think about radio. I think about my friend's dad listening to the Reds game, listening to the Indianapolis 500, listening to Don Fisher on radio, turning IU basketball games, the volume on the TV down. And so there's a lot of truth to that. And I think that I prefer a lot of that. It makes it more exciting for the listeners, I think. Hey, Todd, Larry, let me ask you, are guys that broadcast auto sports athletes? Todd does not think the drivers are athletes.
No, you know what? And also, like everyone knows, I love golf. Golf is probably my favorite sport to watch right now, and I'm calling it a sport. But I saw Bryson DeChambeau do an interview yesterday, calling himself an athlete, and I just chuckle at it, because even though he's physically built big now or whatever, he is not an athlete. Golfers are not athletes. Definitely Jay Query, as calling the Indy 500, is not an athlete. Indy 500 drivers are not athletes.
Oh, man.
Okay, now hold on, Todd. I'll say
this.
He's
endearing himself.
Let me ask you this, Todd. And I hear it. I mean, I hear you. And I'm not going to argue when it comes to me. But let me ask you, have you ever done a two-seater ride around the Speedway?
I have not. But I've driven really fast down 465.
Kidding aside, I mean, I'm not saying this in a defiant manner at all. I mean, I totally get what you're saying, and I think it's a valid point. But I will say, I did the two-seater ride. I've done a couple of them. I mean, I've been very fortunate. But, whenever I was a kid and I would watch the Indy 500 and the winner would cross the yard of bricks, they pump their fist when they cross the yard of bricks, right? So I always thought, that's what I'm going to, like when I do the two-seater, when I come across the bricks, I'm going to pump my fist so they get a goal. Well, so we're sitting there in pit road, and it's the two-seater, so it's an Indy car that it's just a little bit extended, and it obviously just has two seats. So Mario Andretti's driving, and he pulls out, and immediately we're going.
Wait a minute. You buried the lead.
Now, when you're sitting in the stands, that you're crawling, right? You're automatically going faster than you went on the Beast at Kings Island, and that's on pit road. So he blends into the track. We get up to speed, and I'm like, all right, I got to do the arm bump. I could barely lift my arm because of the G's. It was like 3 G's, and like moving around was the helmets flying all over the place. Like, it was extremely challenging. It was like trying to run a 100-yard dash with your legs underwater. I mean, it was really tough. And I was thinking to myself, wait a minute. And we did 4 laps. And by the 3rd lap, I'm like, hey, man, I'm good. Like, we can pull in now. I got the experience. They do 200 laps. Their heart rate is at 130 for 2 consecutive hours. There's 32 other cars flying around them. And they're pulling 3 to 4 Gs the entire time. The physical demands of it, and not to mention the mental demands of the hand-eye coordination that goes into it, I mean, I get it. From an athletic standpoint, it is certainly debatable, but there is no doubt about the fact that there is a biological demand put on you that is atypical to anything in a normal situation. So
I like that, a biological demand.
But I'll tell you, you do a 2-seater and you're going to get out, and I guarantee you'll say, okay, I got a whole different understanding here. Most part, an astronaut, when he is in flight, is not in charge. It's not, I mean, I'm assuming, like, it's computerized and, you're sitting strapped in, right? You're not being, it's not, your safety and your health and your living and dying is not reliant upon your instinctive reaction. Whereas with a driver, it is. I'll tell you this. I will say this. You pick any driver in the field, this year's race, field of 33, you pick any driver, Todd, and I'll meet you at the gym of your choice, and I'll have you go through their workout, and we'll see which one drops first.
That's Jake Query, man. We're so grateful to have him joining us here from Turn 3 of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, as this weekend is Indy 500 weekend. So make sure you follow him on radio this weekend. Best way to follow that. Coming up next here on the program, Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com is going to join us as Indiana basketball has been busy. Archie Miller, 2 more offers last night. One to an in-state kid, Toddler. You're going to be interested to hear about him. One to an out-of-state kid. We'll talk about all that and more coming up next on Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Back to Indiana Sports Beat. Coyle here with you here on this Friday, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Just finished up with Jake Query. Now we got Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com, and the Hoosiers have been busy on the basketball side, Alec. 2 offers go out last night from Archie Miller, 2022 class, looking forward, but not standing pat. He's moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. It was a pretty busy night last night, and they came almost like an hour after one another. So that entire staff with a lot of different Zoom calls yesterday, I know. But CJ Gunn, Lawrence North, and then Isaac McNeely from West Virginia, those are the 2 guys who got the offers. Both of them have been kind of trending that way for a while now. I honestly love both of these guys in the 2022 class. They're both great shot makers and really fit in well with kind of what Archie Miller's trying to build in that backcourt there and on the perimeter.
Since you're not originally from here, Alec, you may not know that the second best player in Lawrence North history is on here with you, Todd Leary. I'm just kidding. I don't know who
if you said I was the second best player in Lawrence North history, that would be the biggest compliment of my life.
I was just kidding because I wasn't even thinking of anybody else. I was just
considering Montross, Eric, or Mike Conley, and Greg Oden all have gone to school there. Jason Stewart, who would have been at Kentucky. I mean, there's been some great guys from there, but I'll tell you with Gunn, if you've never even seen him play or you only watched his highlights, here's one of the things I can tell you that's an intangible you won't know is Coach Kiefer. I'm not just a butt kisser of Coach Kiefer because I played for him and I love him as a coach. He teaches basketball the way it's supposed to be played. So you're not just getting a talented kid, you're getting a kid that knows how to play. And I give Coach Knight an enormous amount of credit for teaching me how to play, but I had a pretty solid base when I got there. And Coach Kiefer, from my sophomore year on, always made us understand, like, there's one thing to be able to make the baskets and guard people and do all that, but you got to understand how to play. And they're going to get a kid that knows how to play in Gun if IU gets it.
And I like that plays right into the in-state recruiting. I mean, Indiana, known as the state that produces talent, and the kid Todd just talked about, a kid that is solid fundamentally from the ground up. That's the exact style kid that Indiana fans are used to seeing.
Yeah, and he's not only one of the most athletic players in the state, but he's one of these guys that's gonna be somewhat of a late bloomer here. I think if there was a full summer this year, he would be someone that would be talked about a lot more with, kind of receiving a lot more Power 5 offers. He already has one from Kansas State. So they were obviously in there a lot earlier than some of these other programs, but Indiana is definitely one that's going to be in this one for the long run. And I think they have a really good shot of landing him when it's all said and done, just with, everything that they've done already in different Zoom calls and different talks that they've had with the whole Gunn family. The one thing that they've taken away from Archie Miller is the way that he communicates. And obviously right now, communication is the only way to really, get your point across with some of these recruits. Obviously you're not really able to see them and show them, the different spots on campus and the different facilities. So the best way is obviously that communication. And that was one thing from one of their original Zoom calls that they took away from not only the entire staff at IU, but Archie Miller in general. And I think that's something that, is going to go a long way here.
Absolutely. And that offer, of course, the in-state offer to CJ Gunn, the other offer out of state, which Archie has had a lot of success inside the state, outside, not so much yet, but I think that's probably going to start changing.
Yeah, I mean, you look some of these guys in the last couple of classes. I don't know necessarily how involved Indiana actually was with some of these out-of-state guys since Archie Miller really got there, but he's really starting to kind of expand that reach. And obviously, we saw with Jordan Geronimo this past class, but Logan Duncombe for 21 here too. But he's really starting to expand that palette a little bit more. And Isaac McNeely's one of those guys that, again, another one that Archie Miller's been involved with for quite a while now. And obviously they extended the offer last night, and he's someone that not only is capable of making shots, but I think the more important part is he's able to create shots and create different opportunities. And obviously making plays is something that Indiana really struggled to do in the backcourt last year. And Isaac McNeely is one of those guys that can kind of fill it up and do it all over the court.
Todd, what is you've seen him play and you know his game. What does he bring to this Indiana program, to Archie Miller's style of basketball? Or what would he bring? What would CJ Gunn? What would he bring? I should say.
Yeah, I mean, he would bring a guy that comes in with poise. I mean, that I think I was going to elaborate on what Alex said at the beginning of that. Not only would the summer have brought a lot more attention to CJ Gunn, it would have also, if they were able to finish last year's IHSAA state tournament, because Lawrence North was the only team in the state able to beat Lawrence Central, which they did it 3 times. We know how talented that team was. And I think he's a guy that would have benefited a lot. We would have loved to have seen him play against Anthony Leal, which I think it probably would have gotten to that point. We would have seen him play against Carmel, getting to that point. He's a guy, he's fundamentally sound. He's got everything. He can get his own shot, which is nice. He's just a solid I hate to say solid, because a lot of times people immediately think that means, he's not an exceptional athlete or whatever. He is an exceptional athlete, obviously. He's just a guy who does a lot of different things well, and he knows how to play. I can't stress that enough. And people, I don't mean to be a jerk in saying it that way, but people don't understand what you're saying when you say knows how to play versus is a good player. I'm not really going to be able to make you understand it. There are just certain guys, like Larry Bird is probably the best example of all time. Not a great athlete at all, but he knew how to play. He just knew how to maneuver his body and get into positions. And in today's world, you look at the Dallas Mavericks and Doncic. I mean, that guy just knows how to play. And I think that's what they'd be getting in a guy with Gunn. Not only is he exceptional in a lot of things he can do, he understands the game and how to play.
I like the fact that these offers for these 2022 kids tells me that for 2021, the work is in. The guys that they want, they've offered, they're talking to, they're in. And of course we know Trey Kaufman, Logan Duncombe already committed, but Trey Kaufman, and then the other offers that are out there that whether it's Mason Miller or the kid that came on late there. But the work is so now just finishing those deals and landing the kids from 2021.
Yeah, again, I don't necessarily foresee anyone else kind of popping up that's going to be a serious candidate to actually land at IU. I think obviously you have, Trey Kaufman, Mason Miller, like you just mentioned. Bryce Hopkins is the Louisville decommit. Indiana and Kentucky are probably the 2 right there. If Kentucky ends up offering him, I think he's off to Lexington. But it'll be interesting to see how kind of that plays out. Michigan's also another school that's in there with him that's really strong. But then you look obviously in the backcourt. I mean, Mohammed's another guy that, may or may not be hurt a little bit by Bruiser Flint leaving. He was the lead recruiter for IU there. But, Archie Miller has done a great job with this entire 2021 group of guys. And I think you've seen that because there has not been a lot of offers out as of late. And he's really just tried to focus on doing everything that he can to make sure he lands at least 1, if not 2 of these group of 4 to join Logan Duncombe at IU next year.
And, of course, we're going to see a muted college basketball season. I mean, I'm saying that just assuming the obvious going forward because we've had so many different cancellations and seasons being muted to try to mitigate the effects of the COVID situation. And so we're going to see a different type of season. These freshmen that are coming in, they're not going to get the games that they're accustomed to playing. They're not going to get the tune-ups that they're normally get before they go into conference play, most likely. It's going to be a different type of season for this basketball team, Alec.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it, who knows if there's really going to be that many non-conference games, if any, and that's usually where, those freshmen kind of get those freshman legs underneath them and start to, learn the ropes a little bit more. Obviously getting thrown right into a Big Ten game in your first, second, third, college game is an animal. And you look, obviously the fans most likely aren't going to be there, but you still have the fact that you're playing in Assembly Hall. you're playing a Big Ten game, and that's something that is going to probably be difficult for a lot of freshmen. But you're also going to be able to see what coaches are able to get their freshmen ready and up for these games right away. And I think, that's what you're going to see with Indiana. But, I think Archie Miller and that staff is going to have those guys ready to rock and roll, non-conference or conference only.
The biggest question that Indiana basketball fans are wondering right now is anything new in the search for an assistant basketball coach. Not that there needs to be any hurry, but and I would talk to Todd about this yesterday. I'm like, I don't think you're going to hear anything about the guy until they hire the guy. Now, after word got out that they are interested in his former assistant from Dayton that currently at Syracuse, that he decided to stay there because it kind of looks like you get turned down when – yeah, you turned it down, but me and Todd talked about this. Well, he's not going to leave. It's his alma mater. Boeheim's about out of there. He's in a great situation. I wouldn't leave either. But that's not a good look when you got people turning you down. So I don't think we're going to hear about it until the guy gets hired or he's about to be hired.
Yeah, I don't think so. I know there's a couple strong names on a short list, and I think that short list is going to remain that way up until we hear a name. But like you said, obviously with kind of the scheduling, a little bit off this summer and leading into the year here. There needs to be somewhat of a rush to get someone in, but it doesn't need to happen overnight. And I think obviously you're going to kind of see that where maybe you won't hear that much up until the day before or the day of when they make an announcement. It's going to be just a little bit different than the Mike Roberts situation of last year where, there seemed to be a different name every single day that was thrown out there. And I just don't see that being the case this summer.
Alec, are there any situations out there with guys like we saw the kid at Oklahoma State last year who, I don't want to say he came there because they hired his AAU coach, but are there any of those situations out there where Indiana could take advantage of signing? I'll just throw Trey Kaufman out there as an example.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, most of those assistant coach hires only last a couple years because they're mainly just looking for that one target. We saw obviously, like you mentioned with Cade Cunningham, getting his brother on staff at Oklahoma State. That's something that doesn't always happen. And, if you're looking to really build a true program, you're not looking for just that one or two recruits for maybe a season or two. You're obviously looking for someone who's going to be able to build that down the line.
Alec, anything you got coming up this weekend the fans need to know about before we get off here?
Not a whole lot. We obviously got a lot of the high school football games around the state of Indiana that are kind of getting going tonight. So I know we'll have some stuff up about that, some of the IU targets and some of the IU commits. It's obviously good that high school football is getting back and rolling, and hopefully we can say the same about high school basketball and then college. Looking
forward to it, brother. Appreciate you. As always, make sure you give Alec a follow on Twitter and go at thehoosier.com for complete coverage of Indiana athletics. Alec, thanks, brother. Have a great weekend.
Appreciate it. You guys too.
Thank you, sir. Alec joining us here. So we're about to wrap up, man. It is going to be a spectacular weekend, Todd Leary. There's lots to do. The weather's great, and go out and enjoy it, man.
I'll be golfing probably before you get out of the shower.
I don't doubt that. Well, I appreciate everybody for joining us today. We look forward to being back here on Monday and with another one. And go out and have yourself a good one. Wear your mask. Do something nice for somebody. And until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook. Follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Ryan Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.